through the Ann Arbor District Library. So tonight we're going to have a conversation about the joys and challenges and future of the Ann Arbor area music scene. So please help me welcome Garrett Schumann.
Thank you so much. Before I get started, I want to thank the library for hosting this event. So for those of you who don't know, this is like a culminating event in a semester-long course at the University of Michigan called Inside the Local Music Community. And I teach that class, which should be a relief for you to hear it, because why else would I be talking if I didn't? I'm Dr. Schumann, as I ask my students to refer to me. And I've been teaching this class since the winter 22 term. This current semester is the 9th iteration of the course. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. But before I get started, I want to thank the library for hosting this event. I want to thank Pete for being a great facilitator over many months of emails, working this out. This is the first time this event has happened as part of the course or at all. And we have some great support staff here too, Ben, Jeff, Ione with the tech, and Tom helping as well. So the library is a really supportive organization for many different things, and something we talk about in the classes, the library being a terrific supportive organization for music, and that may come up in the panel discussion. So how the event's going to work, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the course and what its goals are and things that we've been doing over the course. As I've done a lot of work as a freelance musician, I'll explain a key assignment in this class is writing concert reviews that my students, they do that. So this course I proposed in April of 2021 and first taught in January of 2022. It is a community engaged course, which means it's designed to get students at the university off campus and interacting with the area around campus in Southeast Michigan. The goal of the class is to immerse students in what is happening locally in music, whatever that is, wherever it's happening, whoever is doing it. There's a lot of student-led stuff, so these concert review assignments, students get to choose what they go to with a few limitations in terms of time and place, like local means Washtenaw County in this class. We have guest visits, so the panelists who are here tonight all appeared as guests earlier in the semester, and everyone is a multiple semester guest, although I like to have new guests all the time. And another student-led assignment is these independently coordinated interviews that my students do with local music practitioners. So performers, people involved in music in different ways. And you're going to hear about in the student presentations that will follow my little talk about the concert attendance this semester and the engagement with local practitioners in our student groups. Because this is a University of Michigan course, it has to have a theoretical foundation. And so we draw on this book that is old, but continually proves its relevance each time I teach the class. It's called Art Worlds by a sociologist named Howard Becker. And the basic premise that we take from the book, I won't read these quotes, but I will read the next one on the next slide because it's my favorite, is that art, or in this case music, emerges from collective activity, from the cooperation of many people doing many different things. In addition to those social interactions, there are other ideas like conventions or aesthetic things that emerge through this collective activity that enforce or regulate or shape in different ways what art or music is being made. And the result of this is that the people who are in a particular place making music, what they're able to do is a result of the collective structures that emerge from this activity, not necessarily their individual talent, which is like the romantic idea of achievement in music, because it all comes down to the individual person. That's not the theoretical framework for this class, although everyone who we talk to is very talented, but it depends on community, and it depends on collective activity. And that's what we explore and analyze through the work that we do. This is my favorite quote from the chapter we work on in the class. Becker is writing about museums and how pieces of visual art make it into museums. And he says, the point rather is that the sculptures already in your museum did go through the door on the loading dock and did not fall through the floor. The idea is to get us to think about invisible barriers or limits on who or what is supported by an artistic community that we might take for granted. Because if you all walk down the street and go into the University of Michigan Art Museum, which is a terrific museum, I don't think the first thing you think about is everything fit physically in the museum. And so if we're thinking about that in music, what does that mean? Here's some numbers about the class. So like I said, this is the 9th time I've taught the class. I've had 119 students. They've been assigned to write 595 concert reviews, and then each of them was assigned to write to do an interview with a local practitioner. And we've had 27 different guests in the class, including the 5 people who will join us later on the panel, and that's a list of all of them. They represent performing musicians, composers, people in the media, very much like the group we have with us today, people involved in music in different ways, because all of those roles, all of those positions are very important to what sustains and activates the local music community. So there's some exciting new things this semester. We're joined here today by some people from the Inclusive History Project at the University of Michigan who last year gave me some money to redesign the course. And this is part of that redesign. Also, I got support from the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Education, Tim McKay, at the College of Literature, Sciences, and the Arts, and Assistant Dean of Undergraduate Education, Alexandra Puerto, to increase the credit hour allocation, which gave us the time to work on this. And then also, through that redesign, we were able to do another kind of off-campus activity at the beginning of there's a lot of off-campus stuff going to concerts, but another thing kind of like this is like the pairing with our trip to the Bentley Historical Library, which is an incredible archive on the campus of the University of Michigan, and they have a lot of cool stuff about local music. And so it was a frigid day, although it was really sunny, so it felt like January, like, you know, those days where you feel like winter is starting to turn, but it doesn't really do that, for about 6 weeks. And we went to the Bentley Historical Library, and we were helped by a wonderful archivist named Sara McAndrew, who set out an array of materials, and here are some of them. Mostly it was scrapbooks about the history of the marching band, and from the 1940s, and then also materials around the Ann Arbor Jazz and Blues Festival, and then some other things that were more local, and it really represented, by showing some things in the history of music on campus and off campus, like the core dynamic of the class, which is about the relationship between the university and the non-university community, and specifically getting students to interact with the non-university community. So here's some other things. I was really excited about Global Techno Power newsletter. I thought that was really cool. So this is the end of my talk, to give you some context. Now I'm going to invite Sophia Doolittle up here to talk about concert attendance. So Sophia is one of the students from this semester. And then I will invite our next presenter when Sophia is done. So let's welcome Sophia up to the podium.
Hello everybody, I'm Sophia, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the concert reviews that we did that were assigned in class. So these are a 500-word review. We each went to 5 total concerts and wrote 4 of the concert reviews, and like Dr. Schumann said, it was a pretty broad assignment with like very few restrictions. It just had to be in Washtenaw County and over like a specific like 5-ish day period. Out of the people who we saw, it was a wide variety of people, from like student bands to people who were affiliated with the music theater and dance school, to various local practitioners, and even certain bands who weren't local to Ann Arbor but were playing in Ann Arbor for the weekend, which was cool to see. out of everybody that we saw, the biggest genre that we listened to was Indian folk with 25%. And I think that that speaks more to who we are as a class versus what it says about Ann Arbor as a whole, because Ann Arbor is well known for jazz, and so it's interesting that that wasn't the top genre. And then following jazz was classical with 14.3%, and then Carillon following that with 14.3% as well. And overall, we went to a lot of venues in the Washtenaw community. I personally tried to go to a different venue every review. I wanted to see the most out of the local music scene, and I think a lot of other people try to do the same thing. So here were some of the venues that we went to: North Star Lounge, MASH Live, The Blind Pig, Blue Llama Jazz Club, Hill Auditorium, Burton Memorial Tower, and then in Ypsilanti we went to Ziggy's and the Regal Beagle Lounge. Out of these venues, the most visited was Live, The Blind Pig, and North Star Lounge. We went to Live. I think that that was kind of bolstered by the Battle of the Bands, because that was aligned with one of the concert reviews, so I know a lot of students visited Live for that. And then also North Star Lounge was discussed in class a good amount, and I thought it was interesting that that made the final cut for like the most visited venue, considering it's a relatively small venue in comparison to some of the other areas. And lastly, we have some testimonials of some of the students in the class. So Alyssa said that she sees how big the network is and how many different venues there are and the close-knit community that surrounds us, which I agree with a lot. I think that this is a part of the Ann Arbor music scene that I personally had no connection with prior to taking this class, and it was a really good introduction into the scene and just how wide the network is and how close you can get as a community. And then Jack said that the class helped him be introduced to a different side of the local music scene, and he was pushed to connect and talk to other people, which helped him get to know the scene at a deeper level. And I also wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that going to these concert reviews was a big step out of my comfort zone, and it was really fun to be able to have to take that step to go and open up like this new door with new possibilities and experiences that I wouldn't have otherwise done. And then lastly, Cooper said that he had to consider not only the role of the performers, but also that of the venue, promoters, and audience in executing those events, which ties into the Howard Becker reading that we did at the beginning of the semester, because it takes a village to put on these performances. It's such a huge, such a huge role that these venues do, and you don't see that when you're there. You only see the performers. So I think that this class helped us get a wider view on that. Thank you.
Before I invite the next student presenter up, I should probably explain that this class is taught in the College of Literature, Sciences, and the Arts, and although everyone who takes the class is inclined to take a class about music, at least nominally, because they do enroll, this isn't a class in the School of Music, and so these aren't music majors necessarily, although many of the people in the class make music or have perform or already go to a lot of shows or something like that. But just to provide some context for all of you. Okay, great. Now we're going to hear from Jack Lukasik about guest discussions.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Jack, and I really wanted to come up here to really just discuss another major component of this class, which was, as mentioned before, just connecting with the local community. The first part of this really did come with the number of wonderful in-class guests we had. Here's a number of them, some of which you will be hearing from today, which is exciting. A big thing that really happened was often we would start class, so the guests would be there, and we would start talking, and it would start off with a couple of basic, like, oh, how did you get into the music community? What is your role? Where do you see your future? That kind of thing. But often, like, the conversations could go in any direction. Students were asking questions. We often were researching beforehand so that we had some ideas ahead of time, that kind of thing. And overall, it was interesting to see so many unique perspectives coming out of the local music community. And even cooler, how although a lot of these guests have very different roles, whether it be more journalism or performance or anything like that, there were still many common themes we saw. And so I kind of wanted to cover a couple of those with you today. One right off the bat, which was very important and covered by pretty much all of our guests, was just the general idea of networking and connecting with others in the community. I think that similar to tying back to the book that we read, Howard Becker, Art Worlds, is that it really does take so many people to allow for these performances and other connections with the community to happen. One thing that we saw a lot was just the idea that kind of like a, I guess, lateral networking, like looking out to people because you don't know where they might go, whether it's someone you've just met recently, like if they have a successful performance and you want to start collaborating with them later, that can take you to so many new places. And really all it takes is one good connection, one good conversation to completely change the trajectory of where things are going. And I think that that really was reflected a lot in the stories that we heard from the guests in our class. Another important thing tied to the idea of connecting with the community is just promoting diverse voices and generally just allowing to create a space for everyone. It's important, as mentioned before, the invisible barriers for music and art. There's a lot that can happen that can often prevent people even just beforehand, like not feeling welcome in a community or things like that. And so whether it's hosting a series on promoting other voices in certain like minority communities or things along those lines, there's a lot that can be done and once again came up several times throughout our discussions. One of the other big components we had was our interviews. This was something that I think, like, when we first started discussing it in class, might have seemed pretty daunting to a lot of us. I remember I was thinking, like, I don't know how I'm going to reach out to some, like, musician or something, or, like, how am I going to even manage getting someone to sit down with me for 20 minutes and talk to me, like, I'm just some student. Like, I don't know what to expect. But I think that this really pushed a lot of us out of our comfort zone and also gave us a lot more great insight into the local community. So up here we have kind of a compilation of this is most of the people that we interviewed, so each individual student picked a certain person. Some of them were people that we knew, whether it was a friend in a student band. Some of them were kind of loose connections to like a venue we're interested in, and some of them were complete out of the blue, just, you seem interesting, I want to learn more, let's talk. And I think that that really was great because it was able to expose us to so many new connections, so many new sides of the community. We had concert photographers, record store owners, performers, student band members. We had so many different people to talk to. And you can see just here, like, the amount of just coverage over the Washtenaw community just out of these 10 people right here, and to think like how many people that these people know and just how much that network can really spread. And I think that that's just a really interesting thing to think about when we're just reaching out, whether it be a cold email or an Instagram DM being like, hey, can I talk to you? I have a couple questions. And it's really great to see where those things can go. Really, I think that this kind of taught a good lesson in the class, the general idea of connecting with the community, because I think that it can seem a little daunting sometimes, and this was kind of the cannonball, rip the Band-Aid off way of just getting into it. And overall, it really was an amazing way to see how much the connections you make can take you. And so that's all I have. Thank you, and enjoy today's panel.
Before I invite the panelists up, let's give another round of applause for our student presenters. And this semester we had 11 students in the class, and so it's really great when it's that small of a group. And everyone worked hard on these presentations and also writing the discussion question or the panel questions that we will look at in a moment. And I will say I want to compliment this semester of students for being so enthusiastic about everything. From my perspective, well, it was all new to you because you obviously had never taken the class before, but there was a lot of new for me as well. Like when we went to the Bentley Historical Library, everyone was so excited to get their hands on these old documents and look through things and find surprising details. And I really credit the students this semester for being really enthusiastic, open-minded, and game for what we're doing. This is kind of an unpredictable class because you don't know what concerts you're going to go to. You don't know exactly what the guests are going to say. And it takes a special kind of University of Michigan student to really get the most out of it. And I was very lucky with who I got to work with this semester. So great job. Okay, now I'm going to invite our panelists up to the stage. Lori Stratton, Sara Tea, Laura McAndrew, Kyler Wilkins, and Daniel Long. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you for being here. Before we get started, so we have some prepared questions, and then after we go through those and we see where that discussion goes, I will open everything up for you all to ask some questions too before we're done. So thank you all for being here. This is really exciting. I just want to begin by inviting you to quickly introduce yourselves because not everyone here knows what you do. So we'll start with Sara and then go down the line.
Okay. How close do I have to be to this? Is this okay? So I'm a musician, producer, DJ with almost 30 years in the industry. So that means like a lot of things. I just did whatever I could to survive. So I've been a promoter, I've thrown my own events, and I learned a lot of things as I went. And, you know, I've managed studios and I did whatever I could. And so in the chapter I'm in now is more production, composing, and performing.
Hi, I'm Laura McAndrew. I am a local singer-songwriter, and for a long time, my background in music was much more classical, like a lot of classical choirs and blending in, and it was just a few years ago that I started writing and performing solo and then collaborating with people such as my friend Kyler, but others too. Hello. Yeah, really spend a lot of time in open mics in the local area. I have never missed an open mic at North Star Lounge in the 3 years that they have existed. And there's also a queer open mic there that I highly recommend, and have just made a lot of friends that way. And so I like to make shows with lots of my friends. There's one on Wednesday. You're all invited at North Star. Yeah, just really enjoy collaborating and making things, singing back up on people's songs. And it's just a hangout. Yeah. 22nd, not tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you.
You're so dedicated to these open mics. Sometimes you break your foot before you go to them, and then you still makes it to the open mic after breaking your foot. Now that's dedication, people. Hi, my name is Kyler Wilkins. I'm a vocalist. I'm a live looper. I improv, and I also produce a lot of my own music. And I love to perform so many things music.
I'm Lori Stratton. I'm a music journalist. I work for AADL. I write for Pulp, which is our arts and culture blog. I also publish my own local music blog called the Stratton Setlist, which focuses on independent musicians, mainly in Michigan, but sometimes I interview people outside of Michigan as well. I'm also on 2 nonprofit boards. I'm part of the Michigan Music Alliance, which focuses on professional development and education and networking opportunities for musicians. And I'm also part of GIG, the Art of Michigan Music, which focuses on the visual aspect of music.
I'm Daniel Long. I am an on-air host at 89.1 WEMU, and I host two programs there, one on Sundays and one on Mondays. And then as kind of part of my work through WEMU, I also sit on the board of a local nonprofit called Jazzistry, Vincent York's Jazzistry, which we take a program designed to teach K through 12 students the history of the United States as told through Black American music. So all the way from African root music through the spirituals, through the field songs, through the blues, into jazz, and how it affects the birth of our nation. So,
Thank you so much. I want to start with a little icebreaker question for everyone, which is for the performers on the panel, do you have a favorite place locally to play? Or for anyone, do you have a favorite place to go hear music locally? So, because you all go listen to music, but some of you also play music.
Well, I'm going to say I'm going to go Washtenaw County wide. So for me, it's Ziggy's. I feel really comfortable there. But also, I feel like the Bell Tower lately. We've been playing in the Bell Tower, so I kind of love that as a venue. I like unconventional spaces that aren't usually like used for performances. Yeah.
My home base is North Star Lounge, and if that wasn't clear. I live a few blocks from there, so I can kind of waltz up after work, and whether it's an open mic I'm going to play or if it's a friend who's doing the happy hour or a show that night, you can always kind of bump into someone you know there, and it's really cozy.
My favorite place to play is the Arc. It's interesting seeing that, looking at the places, the venues that the students went to. I didn't see the Arc listed up there. I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Kyler. I'd say the Arc is one of my favorite places, along with North Star Lounge and Ziggy's. But I do try to like to get to a bunch of different local venues to try out different types of music. So the idea is to kind of the point that the students were saying is to experience different things and to try to learn about different communities when you go to them.
So I have two answers. From my younger days, I really used to love going to hear small bands at the Big. I don't get out a whole lot. Yes, the blind one. Yes, yeah, the blind pig. Yes, thank you, Kai. But now staying up that late is a chore. So I much prefer to go hear stuff at Hill, because that way I'm usually done by like 9, and then I can go home and go to bed.
Just like the guest visits in the class, this will be a little bit of a conversation between all of you and me. I love Ziggy's because I live in Ypsilanti, and I'm always really excited when students go to Ypsilanti, and I want to shout out Cooper for being the Ypsilanti MVP this semester. I think you went at least twice, maybe 3 times. One of the earlier in the course of this class, we spent more time talking about the differences between Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor. That's kind of gone away. But Daniel talked a lot about that in his first visit. And it's something I'm just always happy when students expand the boundaries of where they're interested in going, because Ypsilanti has a lot to offer. And then the Arc is an interesting place, but I don't think it's as particularly student-facing as a lot of the others. So although I do think some people went to the Arc, Alyssa went to the Arc, so maybe that wasn't tabulated in the presentation. Yeah. But also, like, Cooper went to the Dreamland Theater, which doesn't even, in Ypsilanti, which doesn't even do concerts that often. So that was really cool. He's the first student to go there, and only the second time in the history of the class that somebody went to the Regal Beagle. So that's like real, very impressive. There's a question here that was written for Daniel, but I think it would be good to ask to both Lori and Daniel, and it's about how you see your role as media members. So the question, which I'll read as it's written and then kind of adapt, is: do you think local radio still plays a major role in breaking artists, or has that shifted towards social media? The question for both of you is, in what ways do you think your work as members of local media supports local musicians?
So I would say one of the things that I've found through, whether it was my own blog or writing through Pulp or other publications from a written aspect, is the idea of making connections. So a lot of times I would interview one artist and then find out how they're connected to other people in the community, whether they worked with a producer, they collaborated with somebody else on their album or a single or whatever that might be, or they recorded at the same studio. That's one of the things I enjoy most, is making connections and figuring out how are we kind of one big community in different ways, and to figure out how to bridge a lot of those communities as one. I'd also say collaboration, to try to figure out how you can collaborate with different aspects of the local music community. For example, like in some of the things that I've done, I've collaborated with Grove Studios. I did some interviews there during the pandemic and gave artists a chance to perform when nobody else could get out and do it in person. We did it in a safe manner there. Also had a chance to partner with Sonic Coast, which is like an online radio station that supports a lot and plays a lot of Michigan artists. Other facets through Michigan Music Alliance, I mentioned GIG, other partners. So the idea was to branch out and find other ways to connect with different communities, and even going to other parts of Michigan, Detroit area, Grand Rapids, up north in different capacities. I would say those are things. So the idea of connection, community, and collaboration are the things that I have found has been really valuable in terms of writing and getting to know people and just kind of coming together to learn about what everybody's doing.
You know, on the radio side, specifically, you know, I can only speak for WEMU. I haven't worked at any other station. You know, jazz and blues and roots music, which is all we program, is such a niche market to begin with that it's really hard to break someone in that manner. You know, a lot of what goes into making a you know, a jazz star, whatever that means, you know, like, first of all, these days it's incredibly hard. You know, like, when jazz was in its heyday, it was the pop music of the day. People knew who Miles Davis was. People knew who Herbie Hancock was. You know, I can't necessarily walk up to somebody on the street and say, oh, hey, did you hear that new Lisa Hilton album? That's really cool. I really like the way, you know, she interpreted Miles on her version of So What. That's not really going to happen. The way we approach it at WEMU is we value ourselves as a community member. So we do try to, and it kind of speaks to another I have the questions here in front of me. Another question that was asked, you know, about how do we determine what is airworthy? You know, we do get submissions from local artists. We do. I typically tend to be a little bit of a rule breaker. A lot of times it's supposed to go through specific channels before it gets on the air. I don't always play by that rule. And I've gotten grief for it a couple times, but that's, you know, as I figure as long as it's within our programming of jazz, blues, and roots and Americana music, hey, and as long as it follows FCC guidelines, I think I'm pretty much in the clear, you know, and I will make my case for that. So we do try to be a community member and play as many local artists as we can and highlight, oh, hey, you know what? Rick Rowe has this new album out that is the music of Mr. B. Like, you have two local luminaries and, like, yeah, of course I'm going to play that record. Like, that's part of our community, you know? I think it is today incredibly difficult, specifically from a jazz and blues standpoint, to break someone in that, you know, through radio play.
The question around to the three of you, how do you all as local performers think about media? Like, do you think about local media? Is it only social media? Is it nothing? how do you approach this, and maybe communications more generally with your audience?
Sure. Okay, so I actually used to work in radio promotion, and so that gave me a really deep insight. And what was interesting about the radio promotion is it was strictly college radio, which would be, or like NPR stations, which is kind of the only thing I would focus on nowadays because radio is not what it was before. So for me, it's a lot of research. You know, you're researching the station's playlist, you're researching the specialty shows. My music is not for everybody. There are certain songs that were on my last EP that one was good for one station in Grand Rapids because I spent the hours going through the website looking to see which DJ would actually like my work, because I've also been the on-air DJ where people would send me stuff or ask to be booked at my gigs and not do any research. So once again, it comes back to relationality, research, care, and understanding, and not, you know, and just, so I did that, and same with press, you know, like, I'm self-aware that like my experimental folk or ambient works is not going to necessarily be on some of the stations, but you know, maybe one of my singles might be, and I find the language to compare what other musicians it may sound like, you know, and keep it simple and a couple sentences and be polite and reference people's work and not just skim, because once again, you're reaching out to community. And you're not just reaching out to community, you're reaching out to community who they're being asked a lot. Like people are approaching them a lot and asking something from them and kind of like pulling resources without care sometimes. So that's sort of the foundation of that, but also acknowledging not every outlet is for me, you know, like they're not gonna understand or be appreciative, but really taking the time to research and you know, digital relationality, you know, but yeah, so that's the first part for like press and radio, and then social media to me is free. So you can complain about it. Like I've been around since, you know, pre-social media, and it's free for us, you know. We used to have to pay PR, we have to pay marketing. So you may hate it, but it's free. So every time I go on TikTok, the algorithm pushes me to new people. There's no other social media right now that does that in the way that I have observed. So yes, it's annoying, but also like building your voice and being authentic isn't the worst thing. And for me, as someone who's limited in my health and energy, I can do that all from bed. So I see it as a bounty, you know, and I don't think you have to go on there and be fake. Like it's just, you know, finding, for me, especially like with energy, you know, how much can I give, and you know, in a way that feels good to me where I'm not annoyed by it. Because I do admit I do get annoyed by it sometimes, but yeah.
I can take it, yeah. So I'll say my scope, my scale of my shows is so small. Like I don't need to sell out the Arc. I'm doing great. It's a very well managed scope, and so I think for me, so much is social media, just in terms of letting people who already know me know what I'm doing. And so I do feel like in my shows there might be at most half strangers, but mostly not strangers. And there were probably years where I didn't use Facebook much, but it is where a lot is happening in terms of just venues making events and sharing what's happening and people sharing their own stuff. And so I use it now more than I did for years at a time. And I do feel supported by, you know, in the Observer, there's event listings and things like that, but so much of it is that interpersonal network of people you already know.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate to meet different people who work in media, and like people who like they'll like seek me out if they see that I have like a new release coming up, and like they'll write up about me and like in the Pulp, or someone will reach out from Concentrate Media, and I'll mostly spend my time on social media, like Laura was just saying, like connecting to people who've already been like yes, like I want to follow you. And like honestly, in today's world, like I don't think you can do too much like reaching out to new people. But like the things that you have to protect is like your own sanity, right? And like and your time and energy, because you can be anywhere. You can be anywhere, but you can't be everywhere. And even the places where you are, you want to actually probably like limit it down. So that you can really start to serve like individual communities and such. So even within like what I use the most, like Instagram, Chi5 Loops, I still like make it so like I don't let that run my life and run my music practice. Now, I could probably do things to have like more people know me, have more followers, all these things, but like I like to engage with that just as much as I like to. And like as long as that's working for me, I'm gonna keep on doing it that way. And at the same time, there are more things I can do, like to see, like, while a lot of my songs aren't fit for radio, I think some of them really might be. So like those are moments that I can take the opportunity to reach out where it makes sense.
I want to say Laura is kind of famous as a guest in the class because she has almost no internet presence for her music and no recordings. And so like the students said, when we have guests, they're assigned to do research and ask questions. And I tell them, like, you have to figure out what to ask because you're not going to find a ton. And we always end up having great conversations, but it's notable, like Sara and Kyler are very active in digital spaces. That's how Sara and I met in the first place. And it's nice to see, I mean, Laura's a wonderful guest for many reasons, but it's nice to bring someone to class who does things a little bit differently and is still really succeeding without, following trends on social media and that sort of thing. I think, actually, I'm going to go to a question that was written for Laura, but I think other people are welcome to chime in. And it's about your consistency and, as Kyler said, your ability to show up through broken feet. You built a presence in the Ann Arbor music scene through live performances and community spaces like North Star Lounge. What were the most important steps or turning points in developing that consistency as a local artist?
I love that there's a question about consistency directed at me because I don't think of myself as a consistent person at all, but it is true that I am about this one thing. So I think it started with having a goal, having a vision, and that has evolved and can evolve. But before I started this endeavor, just thinking like, I want to be a bar singer. I want to sing in bars. And I didn't know what that would look like. But I knew the thing I wanted to be doing, the activity. And then I got mentors. I felt I got to where I could feel stronger in what I was doing. For me, that was a singing teacher was the most important thing, but also just people I looked up to artistically that could bounce ideas around with me. And then the doing, so just like you just show up and you don't stop showing up. And somebody said to me when I was first getting started, I was introduced, it was a much older person than me, and said, oh, this is Laura, she's starting to do music. And the first thing she said to me, she was just like, never stop, don't stop. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So, the quality varies, your body varies in what it's doing that day. But yeah, just presence and being there at all. Some shows are better than others, but it becomes a bit almost to be like, I'm just not going. And the commitment of that. And then I think the last thing is like developing community and reciprocal support where that's really what's helping me grow, I think, is following people into their projects and different ways of hearing things that I wouldn't have come up with solo.
So the way I got my job at WEMU is, so I was a listener, and we're a public radio station, so we do fundraisers. And back when I started listening, we haven't since COVID, but we used to have people come in and answer phones during the fundraisers and take the pledges, take the gifts. And I made it a point to be, like, it helped that I was a student at Eastern and that if you volunteered to answer phones, they would feed you. So, like, I would just show up. Whether or not I had signed up for that day, like, invariably somebody couldn't make it and there would be an empty phone line. So I would just show up. And you just keep showing up and you keep showing up. And eventually, one day our former music director, Linda Yon, she came in and she said, "You look like you're a student. Do you want a job?" And I was like, "Yes, ma'am. You got 100%. Yes, ma'am." You kind of have to, without actually making a nuisance of yourself, you have to make a nuisance of yourself. Like, you have to be, there's a reason there's that old adage, the squeaky wheel gets the grease or the oil. You have to be in front of the people that you want to consume your art or to offer you a chance. And so, and when I got hired on, I wasn't hired to be on the air. It was, hey, I'm losing a couple interns. I need help in the library. Cool. Get your foot in the door. You know, do the library work, do the grunt work, go pull CDs for, you know, grumpy radio hosts or whatever, you know, like essentially be the gopher and ingratiate yourself. And then, you know, then you can, oh, hey, you know, at the time I was running a business with a friend of mine, and I was a karaoke announcer. And I was like, I kind of have experience like announcing music. Can I at least cut you a demo tape? Yeah, Linda said, you know what, let me talk to our former program director, Clark. And Clark took a chance and he said, yeah, go ahead and cut it. We'll see what we can do. And, you know, you have to be a little willing to go out of your comfort zone and a little willing to make a nuisance of yourself.
The theme of showing up comes up a lot in the class. Lori, I'm curious, as someone who's on the panel, also like Daniel, sort of representing the audience and non-performer sort of part of the music community, what are other ways that you think audiences can show up and be part of the community?
I think there's a variety of ways that they can be part of the community. So, like, if you're hosting different types of workshops, people could potentially show up to that, and they can be involved in anybody that wants to support music. So if you're behind the scenes, that could be one option. Like with Michigan Music Alliance, we did a whole conference on, we call it the Music Econ Summit, where people could come and they could talk about everything from like sync licensing to learning about, you know, networking to learning about building a community. So like the idea is, you know, there's a lot of different workshops, like events like this, or things that people can come to that has an audience and that audience members can be part of. Another thing too is, one thing I find common is a lot of people doing kind of like shows and like kind of like a lot of what I call third spaces. So not something that you would normally expect. So like whether it's a black box theater where it's an art gallery that you can convert into a show. I've seen a lot of artists do album release shows that way of different genres. And then you can think about house shows, and that could run anything from your typical singer-songwriter, like Sunday afternoon concert in the house or in a gazebo, or also something like a basement show, like a DIY show. I've been to the formal sit-down house concerts, and I've been to the DIY basement shows that go super late with all kinds of different acts and genres. So there's a lot of different ways that you can, you know, become part of the music community in addition to going to live events. You can host your own, you can go to workshops, and you can just show up to, like, you can donate to people's crowdfunding campaigns. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do to help support people.
Kind of going to what Sara and Kyler were saying, like, social media is free, right? So if you, as an audience member, as a community member, if you want to be part of that music community, repost. Like, share somebody, like, oh, hey, you know what, this happens to be at a time where I have a prior commitment, but Kyler's gonna be performing here. Go see him. He puts on a really good show. You know, like, just spread the word. That's the best way to help local musicians. And that's what we aspire to do at the radio station, is we want to play as many local jazz and blues and roots singers and performers as we can, so that people know, oh, hey, you know what? Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, Metro Detroit, they've got a fantastic jazz scene. And then UMS programs something that is a national jazz act, or the Blue Llama brings somebody in that's a national, because once there's an established scene, then you can start working at bringing the world to you, but you have to establish that scene by kind of spreading the word.
So many great things there, and thank you, Daniel. I want to say I like to share at shows that I put on afterwards. I tell people in the audience I'm so glad you were here. One of the best things you can do for me is tell your friends about this show. Tell your family, right? It's another really simple way to have a powerful message. It's I don't think people actually understand the power of their own voice. When you suggest a band to your friend, they're so much more likely to listen to it than just seeing a flyer or scrolling through something, because we're inundated with media and things trying to grab our attention right now. That's the age we live in. That's the world we live in. Everyone and everything wants your attention. So if something grabs you and it feels good for you and it's real, talk about it, share it. It really does help. It really does make a difference. The second thing I want to say relating to consistency is, from my perspective as an artist, over this past late fall and winter, I started my own basement series. I started cozy concerts at my own house. That came from an idea that I had last summer, where I started jamming with my friend on the floor, and then we're what if we did a show a house show with my friends where we put mattresses and pillows on the floor and just chill out. And now we've transformed that into this monthly event that happens at my house. And I probably can't fit all of you there, but if some of you want to come talk to me. Laura got to play it just this last month, and we had a great time. And it's a mishmash of things, and the cool part about that is the shows can be whatever you want it to be, right? So being someone who goes to those shows and is talking about it, all of that, it helps the artists. It helps us keep doing it. Because as an artist, the reward for doing a good show is you get to do more shows. So that's what we love to do, and that's why we're still here. Never stop.
I want to shout out what Sophia said during her presentation about how she went to a different venue for each review, which is what I love to hear. The only thing I love more is when students go to Ypsilanti. That kind of, it's so much of what we talk about in the class is how people's engagement or activity within the local music community gets organized without us even knowing it. And of course you have your home base, you have the places you like to go, but it's so important to want to just try to do something outside of the routine. Getting that suggestion from a friend or family member, that sort of word of mouth recommendation, that's a really powerful way to break those routines, but also just having that desire to try, and what Sophia was talking about, is really great. And I, Lori, I love that you brought up third spaces and having events happen outside of the norm. I mean, that speaks to the same idea of breaking out of the sort of way things are already organized. The library has become a really great host for performances. And I'll plug that Sarah and I, we performed on Saturday at the Ypsi Freight House as part of UMS's ongoing residency there, and that's a new thing that's transforming a space that is used, has an important value in the community to do other things, and then is becoming more of a performance venue, and that makes for a really special thing. So if any of you own buildings that don't have anything in them, I'm sure these people could fill them for you.
Garrett, I was going to say tonight at the Freight House, it's UMS is hosting an open mic. It starts right now, so run. But
no, stay, please.
But please stay. But hosted by Rochelle Clark, and it's a fantastic open mic in a really cool space. So if you don't know what you're doing after, just pop over to Ypsi. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask one more question, and then I want to open up for some audience questions if people have questions. And it's maybe a deceptively simple question. Can you share one thing that you think the local music community needs, that maybe it doesn't have or maybe needs more of?
Venues? it's tough to operate a venue these days and to keep it profitable, just from a lot of the research and things that I know I've talked to different people in the music community about, but venues, just because more places for people to play. And that's why I think folks are turning to, like, a lot of third spaces, independent or home-based places to play. But I'd say if there's a way we could find ways to support local music venues and to encourage that, and to get people out to attend shows, that's always a challenge, but that's what I'd say.
Affordable venues as well. Like, there needs to be a wide, like, I would love to go see Walter Smith Jr. this weekend, but I don't have the $90 to pay to go to the Blue Llama. Like, I could maybe figure out $20 to see him, at a smaller show, like maybe at Carytown or something. Actually, plug for that. Vincent York is bringing his Jazzistry promotion, or like whole production, to Carytown Concert House on International Jazz Day, April 30th. So, yeah. But yeah, the Carytown Concert House. I think we have lost, Garrett, I spoke to this when my very first appearance in your class was, when I was a kid growing up in Ypsi, there were no fewer than 4 bars in Ypsi where they would $5 cover and you could see, a local band play. Whether it was Taproot at Cross Street Station or, some other band over at the Wooden Nickel, or, like, $5 got you in the door. $5 doesn't hardly buy you a beer in town anymore. So, like, it's really hard if there aren't a diverse economic venue options. So I think affordability also would be helpful.
Yeah, that $5, probably like $18 now with inflation, something like that. I'm gonna say I want to double down on that community engagement, that word of mouth, like artists being excited and inspired by local folks, as that's like students included. Like, and in fact, many venues would be deeply, positively impacted by more student engagement. U of M, EMU, Washington Community College, like all of these places would just absolutely love to see more students in them, because there seems to like be a need of like a bit of not exactly a passing of the torch, but for the venues to not feel so bifurcated, right? Like we can kind of come together, like I think more as one community. So one of the things that I'm doing, that Jack actually talked a little bit about this in the presentation, but at the ARC, I run a series called Voices, and Voices is meant to lift up underrepresented artists from Michigan. So I got to play at the ARC for the first time in 2022, and like after wanting to play there for years, and now kind of as a curator and a host of the series, I get to bring other people in to have that same experience, and we do interviews during those shows so that the audiences can know the artists better, so the artists can feel like, oh, I have a place to share like the things I've been like wanting to about my music. That's not like I need to write the perfect social media post. I need to just nail that interview. Those things help, and they have their purposes, but there's something different about people in front of you sharing about a song and then playing it for you, seeing a real life human in front of you. So creating more moments like that, and like the Cozy Concert series at my house as well, creating the moments where people can feel like they're a part of something. I think across the board we can do a better job at that.
I'll bring my typical cynicism that I bring to your class, which is a magical pot of money to just fall from the sky. It's really hard to make a living as an artist. It's really hard when venues are themselves small businesses. And just scraping on their profit margins, and so it's I don't know where that money would come from, honestly. So, some magical grant that's fictional, but yeah, so some way to support artists for the time, the hours of preparation that go into a 1 or 2 or 3 hour show that you see. There were days, weeks, months of work that went into that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo the foundation of financial accessibility as like a greater need. Like many people can't afford to go to some really great venues and shows here in town. But the one that sort of popped to my head is, I think we need more of an intergenerational and genre bridge between generation and genres, because like we have something like the Arc and we have something like the Blue Llama, which to me are some like the best venues in not just Michigan, but like in America. But I don't know how much crossover there is between the Arc and Blue Llama, or how many people in my social circle who can afford to go to that more than once a year. Not just social circle, but me specifically. So something like UMS, which our recent event at the Freight House was Pay What You Wish. Foundationally, this is huge to me because I myself too can't afford the average UMS show. Does that mean I think it should be less? No, but the point is, because I want everyone to get paid, their staff is world class, there's cost, there's venues. I mean, even looking in here, this is world class lighting, but it's grant funding, it's redirecting the money. So I think, everyone at this table, I think, crosses over with genre, and I don't know you well enough for intergenerational, but I think that bridge between generations and genre and being open to expanding beyond that, because I do think sometimes people live within a box. When we did the show with UMS, there was sort of a feeling of like, I hope the donors like this, because it was experimental music with jazz, right? And we don't want to scare anybody off. We want to invite them in. And that was very intentional in everybody on stage. We're like, we want to find a way where, because what we did was called Films and Frequencies, and it was like soundtrack music to the local Washtenaw filmmakers. And so they're not songs, right? They're not necessarily, not every moment the background music in a film isn't like pleasing and comfortable. It's a lot of modern film does include electronics, but some people are afraid of the word electronic, or some people are afraid of the word jazz, So I think, I don't have the exact vision for exact solution, but for me, this is a really rich community, the whole state of Michigan with music lovers. I've never seen a state more interested and curious. I'm wearing a Stooges shirt and someone 75 years old comes up to me and is like, I was there, right? So, but how are they going to find out about a show that's on Instagram when somebody's profile is private? Like, I kind of yell at some of my friends. I'm like, how are you expecting people to get to the things that you're doing if we don't, take the leap to reach out? Now, I don't want to make more stress for musicians and say anyone's supposed to be doing more, but that's the way I'm thinking, is like, I want spaces where people can show up at different ages, where they don't have to look or dress a certain way or just be into a certain style, and that's foundationally like important to me, where, as an individual either hosting or performing, making sure that crossover is felt in the spaces that I perform in too, so.
Thank you. Laura, if you hadn't brought up the money thing, I was going to hit it on the head too, because that's a huge something we talk about all the time, is that the economy for musicians locally does not match the skill of them. That means it's really bad, because the skill is really high. And I'll just use this as an opportunity to thank the library again, because the library has a budget, and so they were able to say everyone's getting paid. And if you go play at a local bar, you don't know if that's going to happen necessarily. So that was really special for me to be able to say, don't worry, the library's got you. With that, we have about 15 minutes for any questions from the audience. So how this will work because of the stream is you can raise your hand, I'll call on you, and then I will repeat the question over the sound system so it goes out across the world to whoever is watching this. So does anyone have a question? You.
Okay, no microphone.
Yeah.
Hi. My name's Allie. I'm a singer-songwriter myself. I'm a graduate student at the University of
Yeah, yeah. No, thanks, Keith.
And I'm curious, like, first of all, thank you so much. This has been very illuminating. I'm at a point in my life, because I'm about to graduate in May, and so I have on my mind, I'm simultaneously going to be launching a career as a private practice therapist and then also developing myself as a musician. And so I'm figuring out, is Ann Arbor a place that is like the proper market for the stuff that I do, which I would probably characterize my genre as like singer-songwriter, indie folk. But I guess I'm just trying to like figure out, like, is Ann Arbor a place, or Washtenaw County more broadly, a place where like multiple genres are embraced, or is it like more of a niche market? Just because there are other musical cities that I'm considering. I'm from New Orleans, so that's another place.
Thank you. Thank you, Allie, for that question, and congratulations on graduating in May.
Yes. So, I mean, we're not going to be the Crescent City. We can't beat the birthplace of, jazz in Zydeco, and like, but I can say, as someone, I grew up in Ypsi. I lived very adjacent to Ann Arbor, and now I live out in Chelsea with my family, and like even out there, we have so Jeff Daniels is just building a new live performance space. He's renovating a spot in town, but there's also a venue called the Rumpus Room that programs all kinds of stuff from, actually, they've brought in Rusted Root like a bunch of times, and then like, but also TJ Zindel and some more like garage rock type stuff. And then during the summer, the city hosts, it's called the Sounds and Sights, and it's small literally little tents like you would see at like a track meet on various streets in downtown Chelsea, and we have local fiddlers, or we have those garage rockers, or there was a funk band at one of them last year, and so even in a small place like Chelsea, we are open to just about any genre you can think of. And then you add in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance here, and the staff members who are all working artists themselves. Like one of the instructors in the jazz school is actually stepping down from pedagogy to focus more on composition and performance after 40-some years of being a teacher. And then you head out to Ypsi, and you can see some really experimental stuff at Ziggy's or at the Beagle. And so, yeah, I think Washtenaw County it allows you to have that broadness of genre while still feeling small town-ish or small town adjacent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think, remember though, performance radius is beyond Ann Arbor, right? So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. But what I love about Michigan and our location here, there's festivals all over the state in folk, like ones that don't have a big website or may not have a social media presence, and you do get on Facebook, and I'm like, what is this? It's somewhere in the middle of a forest. It's been happening for 50 years, So if you meet these people and like I said, this is the intergenerational connection that I love, and I'm like, I whether or not I'm like a big fan of a certain genre, it doesn't even matter to me, because just like the excitement and the energy. So So yes, everyone's nodding big yes about this area, but you also have Ohio, you also have Chicago, you also have the UP. You have I drove to Cleveland one weekend, so it's a pretty big touring radius too. And I'm not talking about 6-date tour, but a weekend date. So just make sure you got a good car, right, with good gas mileage, and building those relationships. It's although you could just stay here and do it here too, Washtenaw. You'd be fine, but just there's a lot of options and possibility, so.
Laura?
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree that the threshold for getting weird and doing weird things and hearing weird things is really strong in this community. And if it, to the extent that your work is niche, this is the niche. And so I think of this as a very historic, lauded place for singer-songwriters and for folk music, so yeah.
And Kyler.
Yeah, I was just going to add on, Sarah reminded me that when you go to places like North Star Lounge, and you hear a few different artists, especially artists doing similar things to you, they're the ones, they'll tell you about Bliss Fest, and oh, no, I was at Howler Fest last year, and stuff. You learn about it by, again, you're showing up, right? It starts with showing up, putting yourself in those places, saying, I'm a performer too, and then not just expressing, but, listening, taking things in. Daniel was talking earlier about working in the building that he wanted to, right? So that he can lead to the next step, and then the next year you go to that festival. Then maybe the year after that you're invited to play. All these things, they stack on top of each other. The thing I will tell you, it never happens all at once, but if you put yourself in the room, you give yourself a chance that it'll actually start happening.
I'll just, you and then my dad. I think the genre question is so interesting, but I'm going to open up, let other people talk. So.
Hi, my name is Tony Wells. I am the founder of an organization called the Family 734. We started specifically to support urban music artists here in Ann Arbor. We're an underrepresented group. As you could tell by the pie chart, there was no hip hop pie on there, or R&B, or techno, or house, So we have members of our organizations who are hip hop artists, R&B, house, DJs, and then also we have fan members. So if anybody here is interested in hip hop and supporting hip hop in Ann Arbor, I encourage you to go to our website. It's thefamily734.com. But I just wanted to ask you guys, how can us as the hip hop community kind of bridge the gap between where we are and where we hang out and what you all are doing, and maybe tap into more of the mainstream of Ann Arbor, performing on some of the larger stages like Top of the Park and things like that?
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, I love this question. I think, number one, we need to talk. I think putting yourself and in all the people you represent out there in terms of looking at what the different venues seem to be expanding into, I've already talked about how the Arc is looking to expand. I think there's nothing that I've ever thought of that totally would not work at all at Blind Pig, because I feel like things have a way of kind of making their own justifications, right? When they put something truly creative forward, and let the community know, so we can kind of go in and support it. So I think that showing up to these places, which I know you already do, and taking the next couple of steps to figuring out okay, organizations, venues, companies, all of it comes back to it's all just people, right? Everything, it comes back to people. Sometimes it's harder to track than others, but figuring out okay, who are the actual decision makers around here? Who are the people who help you get in the know, get in the loop? like every town has like a Matthew Altruda, for example, like someone who like what can, once you know that person, like, oh, this actually opens up a lot of doors. But like if you don't know who that is and you're like in the music industry or wanting to be, like, learn who that is, right? So I think for me it comes back to showing up and like finding people to talk to, like, and ask, like, hey, you played at the Blind Pig, how did that happen? So getting the story. So yeah, we're gonna talk later.
For me, I was thinking probably more on the production end. I think there's the people that I know, let's say if they play noise or folk or ambient, I know them all to be lovers of like hip hop. But when looking at them, you may not necessarily think that. So whether they're, let's say, a drummer or they're just doing atmospheric sounds or whatever, to me that makes the most sense because like there is a lack of venues here for hip hop. Like if I go to do that, I would either probably be at Regal Beagle or I'd be at Ziggy's or I'd go to Detroit surrounding area. So like acknowledged, and for sure acknowledged what you're saying. But immediately I was just thinking production and those relationships, whether they can play live or you just sample or it's just in the studio or it's the back end, that's like sort of the slowly interweaving the fabric where somebody posts this and somebody posts that. And it's like, okay, can I go there? Like, can you come here? Like, do I feel comfortable? And places like Ziggy's and Regal Beagle, it's, for Washtenaw, like I think definitely would, are open arms, but, I think it's, it is relationship based and conversations and slow and also having that, pointing it out, like, where are we supposed to perform here? Like valid, like very valid, it's tricky.
Just thinking from like a booking standpoint, I would be proposing a few artists on one bill, like, and you're in such a good position to be an organizer of many artists that you could say, okay, who's going to draw different people so that they don't all have one friend group, but you have a friend group and you have a friend group and you have a friend group, and then we're going to, if we're talking to a venue, we're going to propose like a stacked show all together, not like kind of have a little bit of a formed idea before you're coming to them. And I would just say too, I think the Blind Pig does and has had hip hop shows. It's also just really big, where like what full feels like there is really different from what full feels like at the Beagle, right? We're actually having a show there. Friday. Amazing. You're on it. Okay. But yeah, I like to have really well scaled goals that easy to achieve.
See a lot of people do across different genres is kind of, and maybe this is some of this you're already doing, like creating your own spaces. So like looking at, I'm going to go back to the third place again, looking at places to rent out that you can convert into a performance space. Anything like a recording studio, I'll say things like a church. I've seen people do this when they want to put on their own concert series in different ways, and they partner across genres, or maybe it's mostly all within one genre. But I would say like continue to look for like a lot of different spaces that you can convert into music, and then spread the word, like everybody, like we've talked about, to kind of get people there, get a variety of folks. And I think that is one way to kind of build things. And I've seen a lot of people do that and have success with that in different capacities.
To piggyback on that, some of the biggest movements in music in general have started in third spaces. The punks in New York, a lot of them started as spoken word artists at St. Mark's Church in the Bowery. So like look into having, hosting a maybe, and I know specifically like around religious organizations, there's sometimes they're like, oh, well, we can't have that in the sanctuary, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of places have multi-purpose buildings. They have a rec building. They have like, oh, hey, well, maybe can we rent out your gym? We won't unsanctify the sanctuary, but can we at least play your gym? And just building those connections, indeed, because who knows what happens, maybe A2 Jazz Fest just did something with, was it the Methodist Church on the corner of William and State down here, this past fall. So like, you never know which venues are going to say, yeah, you know what, sure, that sounds great.
Try them all is what I would say.
Yeah.
That way, like, if you keep reaching out, eventually someone's not going to say no, or eventually you'll be able to figure. I'd say try them all. So like your own, and then established, and then emerging, and then, because to me some of the best shows are at places I would not expect, and those are sometimes the most memorable in my opinion. Even though I like a lot of the established venues as well.
And I know we're getting close to the end, but also like document so people know and can feel the energy and see what to expect, because there's just a lot of shy people. Like, you know, like, okay, this is what I'm going to expect when I'm there, or okay, you know, and just, I do that a lot with TikTok, because it's like a lot of the people that I attract aren't people who go out a lot or want to go out, but they're afraid they don't have friends who can go. And I find kind of catering to the outer circle of folks who are like, will I be welcomed there? And if you're that identity person where they're like, I can come up to you, like we met in the elevator, we were both clearly comfortable, you know, connecting, and I introduced you to people, and it's like, you already have that energy. So no pressure for social media, but, you know, if people can feel that, then they know they can come to you and feel safe there, you know, because people just, you know, people are just anxious to do anything sometimes. Like, I'm what, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think your voice and amplifying that and documenting it, you specifically, but also the spaces and the events, I think will help people feel like, oh, okay, I don't want to miss this. You know, I love this energy that they're building. So.
I think
I
one
think
more.
we have time for
sure.
one real quick.
Howdy, folks. Atlas the Kid. First, I just want to frame it. It's like I'm a hip hop artist and a violinist, so I get found playing violin on the other side of the river in Ipsy and rapping in the mall. So my question to you guys, and you guys already touched on it a little bit, is like, what are you seeing happening as far as like third spaces developing or like pop-up events? What are you seeing as far as cross-genre growth in Washtenaw right now?
Can I say something? So I'll just say they were meant. This came up earlier in the panel, and I wanted to distill that I think a lot of it is musician driven. Like, who do you know who you can perform with? Like the genre. This genre is something we impose on music. So like as people, we can make whatever we want, and then it's somebody else's job to figure out what the hell we call it. And so, like the recent cross-genre performances that I do their aesthetics are defined by the people I'm playing with, not like a particular goals or anything like that we set out to do. And so I imagine you can do a lot by connecting with different people and collaborating with them.
Most perfect example for me is Totally Awesome Fest, which is based in Ypsilanti, right? These are folks who are lovers of all genres. You're going to see all different genres there. You're going to see puppet shows. You're going to see plays. You're going to see experimental work. You're going to see poetry, right? And finding sort of those people, and these are the people who work at, you know, or volunteer at the local community radio, and finding like the music lovers. And so to me, that's the spaces I feel safest in, where you know, there's no defined specific, this is this type of night, right? And so I agree, like if there's something that you want to see, it's work, but I do feel like we have to build it, right? And that's worked for me over and over again in my own career. Like I would just get so frustrated, and I'm like, where is, you know? And so, you know, I definitely encourage you to do that. And I think all of us, if you approached us privately, or emailed us or DM'd us and had any questions about, well, how do you do that? Well, thank God we have internet, you know, Google now too. But, you know, so to me, that's what I think is the best representation, and it really is for all, and it's accessible and it's free, you know, so.
I would say embrace your dichotomy. So you play violin, you are a hip hop. Embrace that. Embrace both the sides. One of the most talented musicians that I know grew up here in Ann Arbor. He lives in Detroit. he is a phenomenal drummer, but he is also an electronic artist signed to Ghostly Records. And he he will have a show where he's doing he's in his electronic persona, but he's also booking his friends who are jazz musicians to play over top of what he's like. Embrace that dichotomy and reach out to the folks that you do string stuff with and have them play one of your hip hop shows, or do a hip hop thing and, try to infuse that with, the fun thing about hip hop that I try to point out in order to try to get younger folks to like jazz is the use of samples. Use classical samples, man. Like pull in that part of you. Don't separate the two. Like, let them mix and mingle, and yeah, you'll see a lot of cross-genre stuff that way.
Just quickly wanted to say I love all of these ideas and how they come together, building it, letting the different parts of you all come together. And I just saw you at an event the other day, right? And like the cool part about what I can do like with my music practice is like I get to be really flexible with how I contribute to events, like, for like. And like at the end of the day, you can simplify things down to like foreground and background. But as a musician, sometimes I can think about how can I be creative about how I serve, right? When a venue books me, like why did that venue like book me, right? It's to like fulfill something. Like the reason why they're there is to be a place where people gather and listen to music, right? So thinking about how can I do that even more creatively than like I write songs and I want to share them. Like that is fantastic. And I think we can take more steps and be like, hey, like here's something that like you haven't heard this specific cocktail, these combination of things before. And not being afraid to redefine and break down whatever genre bubble people want to put you in. Like there's no need to put yourself in that, maybe to help explain it to people. That's why genre exists, to explain like what you're doing to other people, and to group things and such. But like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we're having a special show in a place that you'd never guess. Don't you want to be there? I think putting all those things together, I think we can really be onto things as local musicians and really start to make waves.
Well, I think that's a great place to stop. It's sad to end, but we're over time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. This was wonderful, and obviously I think we could talk all night. And I would be remiss if I didn't plug our Make Music Day. Ann Arbor participates in Make Music Day, and it's organized through the library. So on June 21st, there'll be music played all over town. And so if you go to our website and then type in aadl.org/makemusic, then there's a sign-up sheet where we'll help match you up with a venue. Or if you're a venue and don't have a band to put there, we'll help venues find musicians as well. So that's really great. Thank you all very much. Kyler, your last point of how can I solve someone else's problem to get what I need as a 28-year-long teacher? It was how could I solve someone else's problem to get what I need for my kids? And it's so beautiful to hear you say that as a great way to end. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you